Welcome back. So this is part 2 of Python programming series and I'm Ramprasad Pujari. In this session we discuss about variables and data types in Python. In the previous session, that is in part 1, we discussed about Python IDs and you were introduced to two types of Python IDs. One is idle and Jupyter Lab. If you're new to Python, then please watch part 1 and install any one IDE. Today's session is focused on variables and the data types. Before we start writing Python program, we need to understand variables and data types here. I'll be using a Jupyter Notebook for this session, and today's topic, as I told earlier, variables and data types. We want to understand what are variables and what are the different data types available in Python. We are going to discuss about different types of data types called as a numeric data type, string data type, boolean, and sequence. Under sequence again a list and tuple. Now before that we want to understand what are variables. We come across different types of data values in when you're writing a Python program, or when we use Python for different applications. We come across like textual information, numeric values, or maybe a group of numeric values, multidimensional arrays, etc. So these are the different data values that we come across. We need to understand these data values very well, and we should know how to handle them, how to process different types of data values. First thing, we should know that how to store these data values, how we can store them so that you can manipulate them. So we use variables to store these data values. Just to start showing what is a variable, let me start declaring the variable. Let me start with the numeric data type. Numeric data type is the numbers. So let's start with a very simple variable assignment, a equal to 5. So what it does is the value 5 will be stored in a, where a is nothing but a variable name. It's a variable, or it acts like a container. Now this variable name, when you choose, you have to be careful. You should avoid some reserved words or keywords in Python. The Python has around 33 reserved words, which includes true, false, if, else, etc. So these are all the reserved words, and you're not supposed to give a variable name which is part of this reserved words. Variable name must begin with a letter or an underscore, so you can't use any other character. The variable name should not start with number. So this is very important. Underscore can be used here. Let's say the first variable that I'm declaring is capital A. Python is case sensitive, so capital A, uppercase A I have used. Uppercase A and lowercase a are different. So I will also, let's say for a equal to 5, a equal to 5 is variable assignment here, and so let me just type Python built-in command I will use. So since I'm using a built-in command, and you can see that the color of this particular keyword is in green, so it indicates that this is a keyword or a reserved word in Python, and this is a Python command, Python function. So I'll use parenthesis when I'm using a Python function like this. So let me just get the details about this particular variable. So a is a variable here, and I want to know the data class of this particular variable. So it says it is an integer. So integer is a data type here. Okay, so a equal to 5. So if it is positive or negative integers, when you store it, and the data type will be integer. So you can also have, let's say if I want to store kind of a decimal number, let's say 5.2. Now in this case, it's going to be a float. The float is another data type available in Python. Or you can also have a complex number, for example 1 plus let's say 2j. So that's going to be a complex data type. So in numeric itself, we have three different types of data types. You had integer data type, you have let's say a float data type where you can represent integer value as well as any kind of decimal value. You can also have a complex data type which is like this, 1 plus 2j, real and imaginary term. And you can also perform different operations. Let's say I'll take variable a1 and that's equal to 5, and let's say a2 which is equal to 5.2. As you know that so a1 equal to 5, so the data type for this by default it's going to be integer, and data type for this will be float. A2 equal to 5.2, float will be the data type. So I can perform different arithmetic operators here. I can multiply, I can add different numeric data types. For example, though this is a1 is integer, a2 is float, but still I'll be able to perform operations between them. There are different operators, like I can use a plus, I can use minus, I can use star for multiplication, and I can use forward slash for division. So these are the different operators which I can use to perform arithmetic operations between these numeric data types. For example, let's say I want to add a1 and a2. a1 is integer, a2 is float. I can add them, and I can store it in some other value. Let's say I'll store it in, let's say, a3. Then I can type a3, and I can see that it's going to be float, because even this integer class will change when you are adding them. Then both will be converted to the same data type. So integer, that means 5 will be stored as 5.0, and this is 5.2. So you can also print the value of let's say a3. Then you can use a print function, or simply you can type a3, so that is 10.2, or simply you can type, let's say I'll just comment this a3. So that will print this particular value. So this is the first data type, that is called numeric data type, where we have seen integer, float, as well as complex. So there is another data type called as a string data type. So we come across textual info. For example, when you're processing textual information, we need to know about text, how to store this letters, etc., strings. So how do you initialize it? Let me just take some other variable name. So I can use a single quote like this, or I can also use a double quote. Okay, this apostrophe can be used here to declare a string. So this is considered as a string. So var1 is the name of a variable here, and if I type var1, and you can see that. So let me just check the data type. It says it is string. str stands for string. So the data type is different now. Okay, so it's going to be string. Now a string is basically a sequence of characters, and it's in a specific order here. So I'll be able to access any character from this by proper indexing. So let's say I can also use a command called length to get the count. Okay, if I want to check length of var1, length len. As you can see that this is a keyword again. This is the function. Okay, so this is the function in Python. So len stands for length. So it says 6. That means this particular string has 6 characters. Okay, I can use indexing here. I can access any of the character from this string by indexing. So how do I index var1? I can use an indexing a square bracket, and let's say 0 means the first character of this. So in Python, the very first index starts with 0. In some programming languages like MATLAB, the index starts with 1, but in Python it starts with 0. So this is 0, first character, that will be P, and similarly 1 means it's the second character, that is Y. I can also access a group of characters, more than one. Let's say 0 to 2. If I write, I get 2 characters. That means starting with 0 and ending at 1 without including item with index 2. So that's the meaning of it. So I can also type like this. If I just, for example, let's say 2 colon means starting, I need all the characters starting at an index 2 till the end. So this is how I can write. So 0, 1, 2. So 2 is T, and if I mention like this, I get all the characters out starting with T. I can also use a negative index where indexing starts from the right side. -1 stands for the last item in the string. That means I get n here. So this is how you can perform indexing in a string. So we have seen about numeric data type. We have also seen about string. So string also can be initialized. You can initialize this way, but still it's the same. Okay, so that's the second type of data type. The third one, when you're dealing with the logical values, or if you want to perform any logical operations, then the data type that we use is Boolean data type. In Boolean data type, we have 2 important values called as a true or false. So if I have to initialize a Boolean value to a variable, let's say, let me take a variable a again, and I will assign a Boolean value called true to this. Okay, you can see that this is the keyword, so it's highlighted in green. So, and let's say b equal to false. Okay, T uppercase, F uppercase. So it is case sensitive, so you have to be careful about the different cases. That true, T is uppercase, that you have to remember. So if I check the data type for this, let's say A, okay, so it's going to be BOL, that stands for Boolean data type. Okay, and similarly for B. And we may be familiar with Boolean operations like and, or, not, equivalent, etc. So these are all different Boolean operators that we have, and we can perform here also. Let's say you have A equal true, B is false, so I can perform, let's say, A or B. Okay, and the result will be true. It's an OR function. Any one is true, then the result will be true itself. Or if I replace it by AND, lowercase, then it's going to be false because it's an AND function. So similarly, you can have a NOT function, etc. So I can also write, so that's about the Boolean data. You can also write a kind of expression. For example, I can have a comparison between A and B. Let's say a greater than b, or a greater than b, and if I type it, and I'm going to get true here, and I can save it in a variable also. This result can be saved in a variable. So a greater than b, it is true, so result will be true, but you can store it in any variable. So this is about Boolean data types, the and or not equivalent or not equivalent. So these are some of the operators. For example, so this is equivalent, and similarly this is not equivalent. So we can also use this operator, greater or smaller. So they can also be used, and the result will be Boolean. So this is the third data type. Okay, so numeric data type, string, and the Boolean data type. So there is another type of data type that we have, which is very important, where a group of numeric values can be stored in a variable in an ordered fashion. So that is called as a sequence. Under sequence you have two types. One is called as a list, the second one tuple. How do you declare this variable? Let me just take again a var1. I'll just you initialize with a square bracket. So let me just take a numeric type of list, 11 or 23, some randomly. I'm choosing some 5 values here. Okay, so 5 values. I'll just let's say this 21. Okay, the 5 values I'm choosing, and if I just check the type of this variable, it's going to be list. Okay, so list will contain a group of numeric values. It can also contain strings. Okay, so in this case I'm taking an example of a group of numbers which are stored as list, which is called as list here. Here also you can perform different operations. Let's say I have one more. I will declare one more variable which is list. So let's say with 2 numbers. Okay, so that's also a list. I can concatenate, I can combine these 2 variables by a single function plus sign. Okay, so this is the operator which I can use. So that actually concatenates these 2 lists. Okay, I can concatenate them. I can perform other operations also on this. I can also access any of these items, or group of items can be accessed by proper indexing. So let's say I want to access the first element of this. Again, I can use indexing, let's say 0. So I'll get the first element, and let's say 0 to, I need first 3 elements, 0, 1, 2 are the indices. Okay, excluding the item with index 3. So in that case I get 11, 23 and 10 from var1. So I get 3. So I can also use let's say colon and 3. In this case I get, again, it's the same thing. Okay, so this is the way I can index a list. There are different operations you can perform here. If I want to append any number at the end, I can also make use of some built-in functions here. There's a function called append. I can use it. So let's say I want to add, after 56 I want to add, let's say 61. So I can just add them. So in that case var1 will be, you can see that the 61 is added here. Okay, so I have added 61 at the end. So similarly there are other functions which I can use directly, and there is a function called count. You can also have a len function to get the length of these numbers. You can also have var remove. If you want to remove any particular number, you can insert in between. If you want to insert somewhere in between a number, you can use that particular thing. You can sort this in a specific order. Let's say I want to sort in a ascending order. I can do that. var1. So you can see that it is arranged in a ascending order. If I want to arrange it in a descending order, I just have to mention it here. I need to give the argument as descent. Okay, so these are the different operations you can do. Now append, sort, these are the functions that are available in Python for list data types. So this is about one-dimensional arrays. Okay, we call it as list here. And you can also modify any of the value. Let's say var1 is like this. Let's say I want to modify the third value of this. What I'll do is I'll just index let's say 2, and I can assign it to, instead of 21, let me make it as 24. Okay, so now my will be, so 21 is replaced by, so easily you can modify any of the values here. So that is about list. There is another type of sequence data type which is called as the tuple. Now how do we declare a tuple? Okay, so let's say I'll just write a side heading here, declaring tuple data type. Okay, now tuple, we use parentheses in order to, let's say var2 I'll say, and we use a parenthesis instead of, or a round bracket instead of a square bracket. So that's the main difference between this. 34, 21, let's say 21, 34, etc. Okay, so this is how we initial. Now how do we index it? The same way, the same procedure is used again. Okay, so what is the data type? The data type here is a tuple. It is not list. Now this tuple and list, they will have the similar qualities. You can perform the indexing like how I have shown, and you can use all those functions for tuple also. But there's one main difference between tuple and list is, in tuple, once you create this particular variable, you will not be able to modify any of the items. You can't modify it. For example, if I try to modify, let's say a second value here, okay, so let's say second value when I say this, and if I just try to modify it, so let me check. So it doesn't accept. It says that does not support item assignment. So that is the main difference between tuple and list. So otherwise these two have similar qualities. So this is about one-dimensional kind of an arrays. Now what about matrix? If I want to, let's say, declare a matrix, and I can just, how do I do? Row wise I can start initializing it. I'll open a square bracket, then first I will declare my first row. So let me go for 3 cross 2. That means 3 rows and 2 columns. 1 comma 2, this is my first row, followed by, let's say, 4 comma 5, that is my second row, and I will have another row, let's say 2 comma 6. Okay, so A is a, so this is the matrix I have, so 3 rows and 2 columns here. Okay, now if I just 0 here, so I'm going to get the first row. Okay, so first row I'm going to get. So if I want to index any specific element here, let's say second row and first element, then I can use 2 indices separately inside the square bracket. Let's say second row, so 1 I can write here, and the first element, that is 0 here. So that should give me a 4 here. So this is how you can perform indexing in a matrix. So this is basically a matrix, and you can perform indexing this way. So these are different types of data types that are available. So for this session, I will stop here. We discussed about numeric data types. We covered integer, float, and complex. And you can use different operators like plus, minus, star, and forward slash for performing operations between these numeric data types, followed by a string data type. You can initialize this way, or a single quote you can initialize. You can also get any of the characters using indexing, and if you want to know the data type function can be used here, and whenever you're using a function, use parenthesis. And similarly, after that, we discussed about Boolean data type, which has got true, false, these two values. And so these are also nothing but the keywords here. Then we discussed about the sequence data types, where there are two types. One is list and the tuple. The main difference between these two is, in a list, you can modify any value or a group of values after creation, whereas in the case of tuple, you cannot modify it. So that's the main difference between list and tuple. And with that, I will end this session. In the next session, we'll discuss more about these data types, and after that, we'll start writing functions in Python. Thank you.